So I put very little work into these videos, and yet you guys still seem to enjoy them, so I'm gonna follow that trend for this video, but I would like to get some feedback. What would you guys like to see for these kind of impromptu weapon guide videos? Leave me ideas on how I can improve this series for the rest of it, and also little update, I am working on I Need a Weapon. I'm just figuring out the thumbnail and everything. I want it to be just right, so it doesn't take like way too much time to make every time I want to do an episode, but that it feels higher quality than the rest of my content, because I always fall behind here and I want to get it right, but I don't want to obsess over it too much, so expect it later this week. But I had to do a weapon guide spotlight video on the FAL. Now, the FNFAL is one of the most recognizable weapons in history, and for good reason. It did a bunch of things throughout history that you can find on other channels that aren't mine. The FAL in this game, however, was my least favorite weapon to use before it got a buff. Once it got a buff to its recoil management, I found it to be more usable, but still not one of my favorite weapons by any means. Then, I decided to do something that not many people are willing to do, judging by how many M4s and MP5s I see in casual game modes like Kill Confirmed, for God's sake. But either way, I put time in with it, and I tried to learn it. And learn it, goddammit, I did. And now I genuinely love the FAL. It went from being one of the crappiest weapons in Modern Warfare to now one of my favorite semi-auto weapons in almost any Call of Duty game. Of course, in terms of semi-automatic weapons I've been using in gaming recently, it doesn't hold a candle to the DMR from Halo Reach, but of course that's completely irrelevant, but it's the kind of irrelevance you can expect from these weapon guides. So the first thing I'd like to say about the FAL is you should always use... There's something I'd like to say, but apparently I'm unable to speak English. Okay, so the first thing you need to know about the FAL is the moment you unlock the longest barrel that's available, the second barrel, this one on screen here that I've taken a screenshot of in post and put into the video. Okay, this barrel, you need to put it on the gun every time. Yes, it's gonna slow you down a little bit, but it helps with recoil control, which is what this weapon needs. It's already pretty good, but it needs more recoil control. We'll talk about that more in a second. But this barrel also helps with bullet velocity, and this weapon already feels hit scan. Now, in case you don't know, weapons in this game are not hit scan, but this gun feels like it. It feels like the bullet hits the moment I pull the trigger. This feels like the FAL from Modern Warfare 2. Even playing at decently long ranges in Ground War, the weapon still feels like it's smacking people the moment I press down on the trigger, which is unique to say the least for this game. Weapons like the EBR-14 feel like they just have trouble hitting moving targets at a distance. Same with guns like the SCAR in my experience and other semi-automatic weapons you can use. But the FAL has never given me a headache when trying to hit moving distant targets. So I believe this is because of the second barrel I'm using. Now just wait, Exclusive Ace will make a video about the FAL and prove that it doesn't do anything and it's all been in my head the entire time. If that's the case, then don't use this barrel, but I've been using this barrel and I feel like I'm very good at a distance with it, and I feel like my weapon's more accurate with it. Now the name of the game with this weapon is recoil control, and there are two attachments for your underbarrel that you're going to want to alternate between. The two things you might want to alternate between is the Ranger foregrip for stability at longer ranges, or the Merc foregrip for better hip fire when you are playing more aggressively. The FAL's rate of fire in this game, and honestly its hip fire accuracy, feels good enough to rush people with consistently. I don't know if that's just the hip fire in this game feels pretty damn good, but either way, the Merc foregrip definitely helps in those gunfights where you need to run up on an enemy and then get a shot off maybe before you can aim down sight. So I always recommend using Merc foregrip if you're aggressive and Ranger foregrip if you're not. Every other muzzle attachment has, in my opinion, been a complete and utter waste of time. Now, I also put a muzzle brake on this gun, but I'll be honest, I just kind of do this for peace of mind, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the actuality of how the gun performs. I don't think this gun kicks left and right very much, if at all. So recoil stabilization isn't that necessary, but yet I like the muzzle brake on my guns mixed with a Merc foregrip, because then I just know that my weapon is more accurate. I feel more confident. I feel like my bases are covered if I use a muzzle brake and a Merc foregrip, because I have better hipfire accuracy, recoil control, and recoil stabilization. So that feels good for me. I don't know if it's statistically necessary or anything like that, but I do know that's what I like. Now luckily for this gun, it's not that fussy. Now there are some things I definitely wouldn't do, and I have some personal preferences here, but for the most part, the FAL is not like the SCAR or the AK or the FAMAS, where I feel like they need just the right combination of attachments to be more competitive. With the FAL, you should only be concerned about two separate stats, and that is recoil control and aim down sight time. You will accidentally end up forcing this weapon into an overly conservative role if you put the wrong attachments on this weapon, and I don't think this weapon is best suited for that. It is a battle rifle. It is something you can go and attack people with aggressively, and if you make it really slow, then you might as well just be using the EBR-14 if you have to, hang back that far anyway. So this is exciting. I have lots of different types of setups you guys can use. So this one right here is a more versatile battle rifle loadout. Muzzle brake and Merc foregrip to just cover all my bases, the XRK Marksman barrel for damage, range, bullet velocity, and recoil control, 30 round magazine so we can lay down suppressing fire, we can pre-fire people, which is nice to do, and stippled grip tape so that we can aim down sight faster, and we have a better sprint to fire speed. This has worked pretty damn well for me. I never feel too sluggish with it, and I don't feel like it's so uncontrollable and geared for something it's not made for that it's gonna suck. With this setup, I feel confident at everything from point blank range to long range. Super long ranges, maybe not, but I've surprised myself with what this weapon can do, especially when mounted. You can really land some shots. You'll notice I don't have an optic on this weapon, and that's because despite it being a semi-automatic rifle, it doesn't feel like it needs the most amount of precision, and I just feel like the iron sights are very good. It's a perfect level of zoom, it's a perfect level of visual shake for me, and some of the other optics, they just bounce around too much when using this weapon, and they kind of throw off my aim, and I really like the iron sights. I want you to go ahead and let me know if this works for you. This has been working for me, so again, that's muzzle brake, Marksman barrel, Merc foregrip, 30 round mags, and stippled grip tape. This next one is a more laid back setup, again with iron sights, that's my personal preference, but I like to use the Recon perk, the rubberized grip tape for recoil control, the Ranger foregrip for aiming stabilization, and recoil control, the XRK Marksman barrel for the same things I mentioned earlier. And I have a muzzle brake on here, but you could trade this for a suppressor on this build or an optic if you want to play at longer ranges, because you will lose some targets in your iron sights at crazy long range. And that's more what the setup's for. This is more for laying back and playing a more conservative DMR role. Now let's say you want to speed up a little bit, you can do this. No stock, 13-inch barrel, muzzle brake and Merc foregrip, and stippled grip tape, and you can trade muzzle brake for a 1 milliwatt laser here. And this is actually not a bad setup if you want to play a more rushing role, and this class actually works out pretty well in hardcore, so I recommend giving this a try. This last setup surprisingly works, and this is a variable zoom scope, the XRK Marksman barrel, monolithic suppressor, and Ranger foregrip again, and rubberized grip tape for more recoil control. This works really well in ground war if you just want to post up your gun and send 20 rounds into your opponents as fast as possible. This works. You can just spam people at a distance. I don't know what to say. It just works. It's a fun loadout. It's not the most competitive in every game mode, but it works, trust me. Now, one of the things I love about the FAL after using the FAMAS or the EBR is that this weapon is versatile. It doesn't get really picky at what gunfights it can and can't win. I don't have trouble taking out people behind cover or that are head glitching with this weapon. It kills in 2 shots to the head consistently. I feel very in control of this weapon even when spam firing it. And that's not something I felt with the FAMAS. With the FAMAS, if I wanted to really, start putting rounds down range, I felt like I was just dealing with too much side to side and vertical recoil. It started to feel bouncy, and people with more accurate, versatile weapons could take me out. The FAL, on the other hand, if I see somebody at a distance and I want them dead, I can just lay into them with this class on screen here, and it just works consistently. Whether they're behind cover, whether they're moving at a distance, it doesn't matter. It feels great, and when they get into close range, I feel like I'm still a competent fighter. Again, to reiterate, I don't like optics on this weapon for the most part because of the visual recoil that takes place when using them. It just feels like the dot and everything bounces around too much, and the iron sights seem to sit a little bit more flat when I'm using them, but I don't know, you guys can let me know down below what you think. But despite having some loadouts I shared with you earlier, I really like to just be able to say this, play around with it. Like, really customize the hell out of this thing. Use sleight of hand or recon or FMJ, use 30 round mags, use the normal default mags, don't use the 24 round mags. This is something I will say that's a little annoying about this weapon. One of the magazine options is 24 rounds. You up your ammo count by 4 rounds, and it takes up an attachment slot. Not even 5 rounds, 4 rounds. That might be an extra kill or two, but in intense gunfights, you're gonna spray a lot of rounds, and you're gonna wish you had a different attachment on. The FAL will be good to you if you're good to it. Pace your shots when necessary, spam when necessary, and take the time to learn this beautiful rifle. It just fucking works. And anybody that says otherwise is a bad doo-doo head that's not good at Call of Duty. So you can take that to the bank. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you when I see you. Goodbye. And get to Fallon. Get to Fallon? Jimmy Fallon? Feet don't foul me now.